Okay, I'm removing the bushes. I need to use a pure green, that's a blue and yellow mix. I need to use a light color where that pure green is mixed with the color of the light source, which in my case is a yellowish white. So I've got my true green, I've got my light green, which is the same green mixed with more white and yellow to brighten it. That'll be the areas where the sun's hitting, and then a shadow color that is black and blue. I think it's about a half and half mix of my pure black can and just the pure ultra deep base blue. I'm using this big brush, and I'm gonna start. This is where it gets fun in a mural. This is where you just start doing real bold dark colors over that beautiful background. So I'm gonna use a lot of dabbing, and I'm gonna go back and forth from my shadow color to my true green color. And I wanna just have a lot of texture with my brush. I don't want it to be filling in all the way. I want it to look like a lot of little leaves. This is kind of a middle ground bush I'm doing. Gonna get plenty of shadow color. And I want it especially down here at the base. I'm being careful not to over mix. I've got a lot of variation here, you know, a lot of the green and the black showing. I'm not just randomly putting paint on, I'm trying to do kind of a swooping out this way, swooping this way, so that the bush looks like it's coming out at about an angle like this. And wherever I've got this shadow fingering up, I'll just kind of bring this down into it. I kind of want to do that, like put little fingers of green coming up and then maybe blending it. Maybe I don't even bother with all that little texture on the end as I get in these shadows. Maybe just get some color on there. Put some right here. Now, it looks like little leaves in the distance so long as I don't mix it too much. You know, so that's an important thing is to leave some areas that are not mixed. But as it gets to these top outer edges, I want to have less and less of that black shade showing. Now I have strategically mixed this green to be a little bit different than the grass because I don't want this bush just disappearing into the grass. So this bluer one, it's a little bluer than this green, and the yellower one is a little yellower than this green. So whatever I mix on this bush is going to stand out. It'll make things look more realistic if you don't use the exact same sets of green for the bushes that you use for the grass, because you know grass tends to be a yellower shade anyway. But it's all just strategic to make the items pop out. It's not an issue of realism or the actual colors of any particular bush. And now I'm going to start adding that yellower green to this. So let's get some of that. Okay, so we don't need to do a ton of it, and we definitely don't want to do it down where the black is. This is going to go where the green is. And it's going to go in very limited amounts. We don't want a ton of this, because what this yellow is more representing where sun is striking through leaves, coming all the way through, and when sun goes like inside of an object and goes through it, a translucent object, the light tends to get yellower. So that's why the yellower shade of green to represent that. See, and if I feel like I put too much, I'll just put more green over it. You see, I want to stay towards the top of that, not a lot towards the bottom. You know, you could put a little bit down there, but you want the main bit of it to be towards the top of these. And then after you've established a system and you've got enough consistency and it's starting to look right, then you can do something unexpected, you know, like maybe you just put a tiny dab and just you have a little bit catching the light right in the shadow or something like that. You know, unexpected things can really set an object off. Or sometimes make them look worse. It's always worth trying it out though. Trial and error is the way I roll. Okay, then let's do the last color. Let's put these up in here. Some there. So the grass, these green, I already have the greens I use in the grass close enough. So the shadow color of the grass was my black and blue shadow color mixed with the true green color. So I'll put this down, and I've already got that black in this brush, so I'm gonna just start making a shadow on this grass. Now I want the sun coming down this way, so I'm gonna wrap this up in here. And this shadow will look a lot better if it has this shape of the grass, right? I'm doing these vertical strokes. Come out just a little further than the edge so that it looks like the sun is a little bit to the right. Like that. Just put a little bit more of this brighter green. Ooh, that's way too yellow. We'll have to put the bluer one on there. Put this one on there. Yeah, that's better. Put that black one on. I'm gonna do it so that you can still see texture in there. I don't want it to be a solid color, because it's cool when you can see the same texture in the shadow as you can see in the light. That makes the thing look a lot more realistic. So I'm coming in here, doing the shadow of this bush. Maybe one of those branches is casting a shadow down this way. Some more down here. Okay. And then maybe I'll reestablish some of these shadows here. Blend it in. Like this. Now, I'm kind of feeling like I brought the shadow down kind of far. You know what I mean? So that's causing this to, that looks like a really long shadow. Because of the perspective, it looks like it's too long this way. So I probably want to go a little less than that. And if you need to correct something, you know, if you get to it quick enough and it's over dry paint, then you could just use a wet rag and get paint off. Otherwise, I would just paint over it and do it again, no worries. But the shadow comes down kind of far and it's messing with the perspective. So this is the advantage of working with this acrylic paint. You see, probably wouldn't want to do that on oil-based canvas. So working with the medium, you don't always have to work against it. You find out what it does do and use it to your advantage. And doing layers happens to be one of the easier ways to use this paint. So let's grab these colors and pull them out this way a little bit. Pull it up in here. Now notice how the shadow, how this dark shadow comes down below this line. Like if you drew a perimeter around this, it's like an oval that goes through the bottom of the object. It's not just under the bush. Okay, that wouldn't look right. You want it to come up and be wrapped around so that it looks like these are coming out in front of it, and so you have some good depth there. Placement of things, so important. Perspective really matters a lot. I mean, perspective is what your eyes use all of your life to tell you what's going on around you. So in a painting, it's real important to learn about perspective and how to properly place things. The advantage to using this fast drying paint is that you can very shortly after you put a first layer, do another layer over it. Now you don't want to commit yourself to a whole lot of details on a freshly painted layer because we're talking about rapid drying. But look, this is fun to do. I'm taking this same shadow color I used and I will redefine shadows that I see. And this shadow here, I'll take that and I'm just layering this color over it, and I'm just going to draw that shadow up in there. and there's a lot of blue in this. So as it gets more and more I'm brushing it out real thin, so it's a translucent layer over this. And it's going to add tons of color to this picture. And I'm going to have these real vivid blue-green shadows in here. And so it'll help me to make these highlights pop out a lot. And then help me to redefine the little shapes on this bush. I can come in here, do this one. Maybe I'll just dab a few places. I can put a lot of it down at the base here. As a matter of fact, I think because of how far the shadow comes, and I don't like that kind of square look there, I'm gonna bring some branches swooping out here so it looks a little more consistent. But I like just putting this layer over it. Maybe I'll come in, put more of those greens in this black here so it's not so black. So it looks like there's a little bit of leaves popping through the shadow there. See, it's a lot more texture when you go wet on dry. It's not mixing with the layer under it, so I'm getting these real sharp little dots. Put some down, sticking out of the shadow. Okay, the last thing, I just wanted to have a few little branches so that it's not just a big ball of foliage. So to do that, I'm going to paint negative space. I'm not going to paint the branches. Maybe I'll just brighten up some of these areas that I want it to look like the green popping through. This is all supposed to look like bright green popping through from the background. Okay, down to here, see I have a darker tone, so I can just do little bits. If I try to make them close to each other and leaving the shapes of branches in the middle. You know, it's fun. But I'm going to do this with another color too, after I get lower in the bush. This is how I'm going to do it towards the top. Okay. So I'll just go right over the top of some of these little green parts, and I'll make some triangles. Okay, these shapes I'm making bigger because I want bigger branches showing. Look at this guy right in here. See, I just made a branch in the middle of the bush. Watch, I'll make another one. This is a straight, see how this line connects right through there? I'll make that again, watch. I'll go like that. Make little side branches coming off. Maybe get a little more of the light color so that I can get some more contrast. I'll take the black and maybe just do a little guy coming off of here with some little bits of foliage. Just a little bit of detail to catch the eye. Okay, make some of my little foliage in here. Little dots of it there. Maybe bring in some of my green so that it looks consistent with the rest. Wherever I have my brighter green, anywhere on these brighter greens, just put little dots of white. Okay, just some little highlights. What that is just where the sun is just catching the glare of some leaves. So just put it out on the tips of the bright greens. And even a couple that are in the middle of a dark area, but not a lot. Don't do a lot of these. The key to it is in tiny amounts so that it just looks like little spots where the sun is creating some glare. And maybe pat them out with your hand a little. It's a quick way to multiply them too. Look at that. What if it's far away? That is the question. I'm going to add more sky color to anything far away. But adding more sky color doesn't always mean opening up my bucket of sky color and putting it in, because my sky color was made from the same primaries as these colors. So all I need to do is mute the greens by adding both the highlight color and the shadow color to them. Okay, I'm using a little 1-inch My little 1-inch purdy brush. Question is, how big do I want to make it? I'll make it look like it's kind of behind this grass. I like that grass, so I'll make it coming out from behind that grass. Then my green. Then I'm going to bring my highlight color. And I think it's missing some of that more yellowish green that I mixed. Let's put just a touch of that in, up on these tops. Then I could get my white here and do little highlights, just like I did with that front bush. So let's just do the little shadow with the base now. For the shadow, it's now over dirt, so we've got to do dirt shadow color. So we'll just get red, not too much, white, okay, and black. Now this has black and blue in it, but I think it'll work. Okay, then we should put a shadow on the green too. Shadow on this grass. So we need our green, we'll use the lighter green in the shadow this time since that's further away grass. We don't want that bright, brilliant green. We want this gray or distant color. Maybe a little bit of the bright green. So this is where we want to make leaves, where you can see if it's that kind of a bush or that kind of foliage. So I'm not going to bother trying to make it any certain kind, because this is all about getting the right colors in the right places to make whatever you make believable. So let's put some of the brightest greens down, where I'm going to mix my, see this real bright yellow green, and I'm going to mix my highlight green. I'm going to get these. I'm going to leave space between them, like this. Maybe this is more of a small tree than it is a bush. Keep in mind that it's going to dry darker, so you're going to see it better. Okay, you're going to see it better when it dries. Going in here, let's be brave. So I find that I primarily like to use the longest point of the brush, kind of holding the brush pointed at the wall this way and swooping like that. It's a way of getting these tapered lines where I push harder and I get a bigger line. I push light, I get a point. I push hard, it gets fat. Lighten up, it comes to a point. See, so I like that control, kind of like with the calligraphy pin or something. The thing about leaves is, you know, maybe these leaves have a particular shape, but leaves, they're always in some kind of perspective and folded and bent, and if you trace the silhouette shape of a leaf, it doesn't very often look like that diagram version of the leaf in the encyclopedia. You know, they tend to just move more like these random shapes anyway, and it creates a lot of movement to have these shapes in here. Okay, that's my bright background. This is leaves that the sun is illuminating them by kind of shining through them. Now I'm going to get my deeper green. These are leaves that are getting hit by the sun, but you're not at an angle in which you see the sun coming through them. So now I'm putting this deeper green over the top of this lighter green. Now let's get a shadow color in there. Same thing as with that middle ground bush where I got the shadows at the base of the deeper green. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just kind of going backwards from what I did. This is my same shadow color. I'm going to put it in an area and then kind of move it outward. I want my shadow color to stay touching this bluer, deeper green. So I am trying to be careful about that. I want these to look like broad sections of leaves and shadows in between. So I don't want a lot of those fine little stripes of deep black. So I am trying to take those out. Now as it gets down low, that's where I will allow patches of pure black. Except for it's black with that deep blue in it. So it's still not pure black, but it's gonna look just as dark as pure black. I'm gonna allow that to stay in these darkest areas. This is the shadow color of the dirt. It's gonna be under this bush. Then get a little bit of this white, make some tiny details in the dirt. I cover this more in the how to paint dirt section. Maybe it'll look good to put some little, these could be shadows of leaves back in there. You know, not a perfectly smooth edge to the shadow, you know. I got to keep those lines skinny and horizontal so that I maintain my perspective of ground coming toward me. Put a few more of these. These are just shadows of little, I don't know, branches, leaves, whatever. Just breaking up the edge of this shadow. This will be the end, the edge of a, kind of a cluster here, and I'll get less and less as I get near the middle. Here, maybe add some of the black to blend it, fade it in. Trying to identify different little clusters. Okay, here I'm seeing one, so I'm going to try to perfect that a little bit. Okay, make the green get less, fading into that black. You see? So now see how it looks like here's a cluster coming down, fading into black, cluster here, fading into black. I want to develop more sections like that. So you see, it's just redefining what's already there. That's what I'm doing right now. That's what this time is. So, you know, maybe you spend a long time doing this. Maybe you're not as much of a perfectionist and you're happy with it after just a couple strokes. The next step is going to be the bright highlight color, the one that's not quite as yellow. This one here. That is going to go on the very ends of my green sections. Smaller amounts of this one. See all these sections that I just established, that's where I'm putting it. Okay, here's a swooping dark shape, and I'll just, and it looks like the underside of a leaf and the top side of it going across. I can find more like that, like this one. Okay, that wasn't so good. Let's try another. That one's better. Here's one. See, I love how that looks. You know, just little dots of that white. So you don't want to do a lot, just where the brightest sections are. Just where the sun's catching the shiny side of a leaf and just making a little bit of glare on it. It always feels to me like looks a little more like it's in motion if there's some blurry spots in there. You know, where you just barely pull the brush across and it just like doesn't have a lot of shape to it. It's kind of blurry looking. I like that. And watch this. This is fun. Detail brush. I could use a bigger one. This one might be a little small for this, but it'll be fun. Okay, we're gonna make some branches swooping into the middle. Make some branches coming into there. Then I'll come along and just highlight some upper edges of these branches. Like this. The negative space, just like before, is going to be shadow color mixed with highlight color. So my brightest green mixed with my darkest color. And it creates a very gray color. And that creates a nice distant color to use for negative space. So then we'll come in here. Oh, it's not light enough. Not light enough. Okay, come in here like this. Maybe make it a little bit lighter. I'll just add white to it to make it lighter. Make some of it over here. So doing the same thing on this side. Lost a little bit of that one in the end. Paint it back in. Okay, we've painted bushes. We did background, middle ground, foreground bush. Now, time for the fun part. Let's do some water.